So this is an excerpt from Majjhima Nikaya 35, the shorter discourse on Saccaka. Here, Saccaka, also known as Ajivesana, asked the Buddha, how does Master Gotama discipline his disciples, and how is Master Gotama's instruction usually presented to his disciples? This is how I discipline my disciples, Ajivesana, and this is how my instruction is usually presented to my disciples. Bhikkhus, material form is impermanent, feeling is impermanent, perception is impermanent, determinations are impermanent, consciousness is impermanent. Bhikkhus, material form is not self, feeling is not self, perception is not self, determinations are not self, consciousness is not self. All determinations are impermanent, all things are not self. So why does the Buddha describe things as not self rather than impermanent, like determinations?
Say again?
So why doesn't he describe the things as not self? As impermanent, like he describes determinations as impermanent.
Right. Well, because that would be on the level of an explanation. It would be on the level of everything is impermanent, everything is not self. And then people would just use that to basically paste it over their experience and say, yeah, everything is not self, everything is not self. But the point is to see it for yourself, which means the impermanence and the not self are on two different levels, if you see it rightly. So you need to see the impermanence rightly in order to experience the not self. But if you just think that not self is seen where all this impermanence is seen, well, you'll see that with yourself, with your sense of self. So that's why all determinations are impermanent, all things are not self. Not all determinations are impermanent, all determinations are not self. I mean, all determinations are not self, but that's not the insight you need to see. That in and of itself would just be just another kind of information in the view you could just adopt, which is exactly what people do today. It's like, oh yeah, the Buddha, has said everything is impermanent, and you can see everything is impermanent. Oh, this is not myself. This is impermanent. That house is impermanent. Everything is impermanent. Everything is not self. No, everything is impermanent. I'm not myself. So that's then when you also have to recognize that this impermanence of determinations, of things that determine you and define you, is not the impermanence of random things in the scientific world. It's the impermanence of things that are dear to you, that you're bound with, that your sense of self is generated by. So seeing that as impermanent means your experience won't be taken as mine.
So to understand impermanence, you don't focus on sensations in my knees. It's more discerning the context.
Well, no, just find what's dear to you. What would you be afraid of losing? And that's where the impermanence is.
Like where I find gratification, where I seek pleasure.
Yeah, where my sense of self resides. Yeah. You have to start undermining it by seeing it that it has to sit on something that's impermanent. It has to be defined by. So like when the Buddha spoke about a king, he was defined by his king's possessions, by his king's army, king's wives, king's palaces. That is what makes him a king.
And you have to allow that, that sense of self to arise without acting out of it, in order to then be able to discern the determinations of it.
Well, yeah, sure. But you really need to start. You won't even be seeing the sense of self and whether you act or not. Like you need to sort of stop looking for impermanence on the level of observation, like whether it's tactile sensations or sights and sound. Oh, it's impermanent, and just reflect and see what are the things that you are sort of attached to. What are the things that are dear to you? What were the things that you'd be afraid of losing? Those are the determinations that are impermanent. See, they determine you for what you are. They determine the value of things for you. So that's what you want to see as impermanent, and thus it cannot be a self.
And initially that's quite scary. So for a king to see that I'm a king because of what makes me a king, like the crown.
All a king would need to do is just to start reflecting that he could lose all of those things, including he himself as a king wouldn't be no more. And if he does not
And
develop his mind,
it's not he could. He will.
oh yeah, he will,
It's
of course,
100%
of course.
sense, yeah.
If he's 100%, but if somebody just starts to practice, they will not necessarily be able to like just fully recognize it's 100% it's going to happen. But it would still be useful to even just start thinking, yeah, I could. See, I could already means, okay, so I can't take this for granted. And if it cannot be taken for granted, it cannot be myself. It cannot be my ownership. I'm not the master controller if it can change against my will. So the king doesn't need to destroy his palaces to realize a Nietzsche. He just needs to start questioning what he has taken for Nietzsche. That's it.
What he's taken as permanent.
Yeah.
And yeah, because a lot of people think, like when I meditate, it should be pleasurable. Like there should be. So this is actually saying, okay, there's this something quite scary that in this contemplation, and that's good. That's something which you should not.
Well, yeah, that's why the gradual training. You don't just start. You sit down and you enter these contemplations and so on. Like you start sense restraint, withdrawal from unwholesome, from sensuality. That will give you the capacity to then hold these uncomfortable things internally without sort of, looking away immediately or trying to get rid of it or cover it up or distract yourself from it. That's why I keep saying, like, even whatever, however you would have arrived at the practice, whatever meditation technique you're doing, really what you need to start is like, why am I doing this? Gotta start questioning that. What am I, okay, so you're observing sensations or focusing on some objects and so on. Is like, what's the point of that? Do I know? Do I see? What is this supposed to result in? It calms me down in regard to what? Where does the disturbance come from? So that I need to practice calmness. What is it that disturbs me? Is it the fact that I was not focused enough? Or is it the fact that I'm holding dear things that are not in my control, and when I feel even a slightest hint at them perhaps changing or becoming otherwise, I'm overwhelmed with stress and pain and being unable to keep the lid on it. It's like, well, that's the root of suffering, not your lack of focusing on undeveloped concentration method. No, it's the wide basis of things taken for granted as mine that cannot be yours, and you're turning a blind eye on it, and that's why the stress is building up, the pressure at the edge. Start relinquishing it, and there'll be nothing able to perturb you. Even if you never ever sit again in a lotus posture to meditate.
And you relinquish it by seeing it.
You relinquish it
nature.
exactly by that contemplation. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, this is dear to me. Is this in my control? Is it subject to being otherwise? All these things, and sustain those contexts. Don't ignore them. Don't take them for granted. And that is relinquishing those things.
Those that I came across the other day, the translation, it says all sankharas are other, and it wasn't
alien.
using the alien, foreign.
Yeah.
It wasn't using the term Nietzsche. It was using other, foreign, alien, which is Nietzsche.
Yeah.
It's like all sankharas are other. So all the things that are determining myself are other than myself, whatever myself might be.
Yeah.
All
They're
the things
alien
that
to me. Fundamentally, they cannot be familiar, friendly, personal, dear. They're alien, they're unknown, they're subject to change, they cannot be accessed. So in the core, they remain alien to me. And that's why this sense of me that depends on that alien core, it's equally alien to me.
Yeah, and I think that's it. And that which is alien to you, foreign to you, other than you, yourself depending on that thing, how is that?
Yeah.
Is that a
Is
great...
that dear? Is that agreeable? Is that
Yeah.
trustworthy?
Yeah.
Is that something you can relax in and put your faith in? No, because it's alien, because it's unknown, because it's uncertain. Oh, I don't know this person, I don't know this environment, I better be careful. Well, that's the core of your sense of self, unknownable, because it's completely alien and inaccessible. So, I better be careful and not take it for granted.
But I trust my body, I've got good health. I feel, certain, it feels friendly.
Familiar.
Familiar, yeah.
That's it. It's the familiarity due to negligence and turning a blind eye. Yeah.
And
That's the familiarity.
Mindfulness is becoming familiar with the context of that which is alien, which is...
Yeah, become familiar with what undermines your day-to-day familiarity.
Yeah.
And that will not be felt pleasantly initially, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot. What's it? But that's that other term for anitya, isn't it? It's unfamiliar, isn't it? It is actually
dear. Nitya
dear,
was dear.
homely.
Dear to you, homely, friendly, familiar. Anitya is the opposite of all of that.
And that's how we take everything. As familiar.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, so it's when if you want to practice contemplation on nature, you don't start on random things that you're impersonal towards, that you don't care. That bottle or that chair. Like nobody.
That's
but
like science.
But if that chair has emotional significance, it's left by your grandparents and it's really valuable. Then contemplate the impermanence of how somebody come and steal it, and see how you would feel on account of that. And then contain that context. Don't distract yourself towards sensuality. Don't turn a blind eye towards it. And during that context, removes basically your dependence on things that are alien. So it's diminishing your sense of self. That's it. Do that sufficiently, there will be nothing in the world you can take as yours.
But you can get rid of things. Throw things away.
Yeah, you can throw away.
Stuff from my grandparents.
Because, as I said, the king can maybe destroy his castle thinking that will free him from his, but he won't. Because the ownership was not in those things, it was in your attitude towards them, which means he'll take something else that's going to define him. Maybe he doesn't want to be a king anymore, but he's going to take another definition of himself. In other words, his self will find a way to get re-established elsewhere.
And this insight isn't dependent on things changing, because it's nothing to do with the things in themselves. It's your ownership of the things, which is what you're referring to with these difference between things and determination.
Exactly.
So then Saccaka or Ajivesana then refutes the Buddha, saying, "A simile occurs to me, Master Gautama. Just as when seeds and plants, whatever their kind, reach growth, increase and mature, all do so in dependence upon the earth, based upon the earth. And just as when strenuous works, whatever their kind, are all done in dependence upon the earth, based upon the earth, so too, Master Gautama, a person has material form as self, and based upon material form he makes good and bad choices. A person has feeling as self, and based upon feeling he makes good and bad choices." And then he goes through 5 aggregates. And then the Buddha says, "Ajivesana, are you not asserting thus? Material form is myself, feeling is myself, perception is myself, determinations are myself, consciousness is myself." And he then asks a counter question. "What do you think, Ajivesana? Would a head-anointed noble king exercise the power in his own realm to execute those who should be executed, to find those who should be fined, and to banish those who should be banished?" He would exercise it, Master Gautama, and he would be worthy to exercise it. What do you think, Ajivesana, when you say thus, "Material form is myself"? Do you exercise any such power over that material form as to say, "Let my form be thus, let my form not be thus"? And then he goes through each of the 5 aggregates. So a person can understand this intellectually, like, I don't have power, ultimate power over like form or feeling or any of these aggregates. How does this insight free one from suffering? Well,
by exactly what I said before, you have to do it on the level of things that are taken as yours, on the level of things that you do assume the ownership over. A king can see whether he's in charge or not by trying to exercise power within his kingdom, not on someone else's kingdom. Then they wouldn't tell him anything. And that's exactly what people do. They try, okay, formula, but all those are abstract things. They don't actually stand for what the form is, for what the feeling is. And that's why they're not uprooting anything. But obviously, even Saccaka understood, and he was referring to the actual form.
Yeah.
So it's not that he was just this kind of...
This self.
Yeah,
that's why
he wasn't just like a kind of some abstract, theoretical, kind of just trying to argue with the Buddha.
Mm.
He was referring to the form, which it is there. Which it is the basis, we're being taken in self and so on. It's just that he thought, see, that form is always there, that feeling is always there, so whether you act like this or you act like that, that's all secondary to the fact that you are it.
Yeah.
But then the Buddha said, okay, that form that you do see rightly, let's say like that, well, what are the properties of it? Can you make it not deform? Can you make it not age? Can you make it not experience elements? And then he realized, oh, he can't. So then, you're not a king. If a king cannot exercise his power, he's not a king. Somebody else is. Or it's not his kingdom. So if you want to reflect that with with practical results, as I said, needs to be done on the level of your kingdom.
Yeah.
On the level of things that are dear to you, that you assume the ownership, that you feel entitled towards and justified in. So, now start reflecting upon the form over there, upon the feeling over there, upon the perceptions over there.
So, seeing the five aggregates in the way that Saccaka was doing is kind of like a necessary prerequisite for then looking at the determinations of that self.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like
I think the problem is that people, as I said, due to obviously, it's been so long since the Dhamma was kind of alive, in the sense Buddha was teaching it, people don't even know what the aggregates are. So when you read about the aggregates, you get these abstract notions, and then you reflect on the level of abstract notions, and then you proliferate further in the views, and that's why exactly I don't know how many times I heard, modern science has showed that, proven the Buddha right, because look, everything is constantly changing. Or yes, people observing sensations and trying to pinpoint anicca and see and let go of it. So all of these are kind of proliferated abstract terms and views, while in reality you're still bound and attached with your sensual desires, love of children, family, company, safety, health, taking life for granted, all these vast bases that you could really look close, not even that closely, and you would realize, this is unownable. But it's completely ignored and then just been kind of reinterpreted and re-explained through these views, and electrons changing, or this, or sensations coming and going. All that's relevant.
Good,
that's not where your ownership is, that's not where your sense self is. That's all on these secondary terms. So it's not even where the five aggregates are, so to speak. You're not, it's all within the five aggregates, but you're not seeing them correctly.
As the context.
Exactly, is that which undermines you. And Saccaka he sees that as that which undermines whether you do this or that, feel this or that, but then he assumed that which undermines is yours. It's there, it's stable.
Even if it's changing all the time, at least it is still mine.
Yeah, he wasn't obviously seeing it, he wasn't seeing the change on the right level.
Mm-hmm.
He was seeing the change as secondary to the form, to the feeling. And that's why he was regarding it as permanent, as mine, as myself. Yeah. But that's what we point out. Well, okay, now that form that you refer to, can you prevent it from deforming, being subject to illness? The feelings, can you make them go away when you want and bring only the ones you want? No, you are subjected to them in the same way. So it's like, none of that can be mine.
But you need sense restraint and virtue to be able to see that.
To reveal what is dear to you.
You'll think, okay, I can control my feelings. I can eat a tasty cake, and that will feel better.
Yeah. No, the virtue and sense restraint would force you to stop turning a blind eye to what is dear to you and actually feel the weight of it. And you're subjected to it because, it's unpleasant. Recognizing that these things are subject to change while you're bound with them, it's unpleasant. It's what anxiety is. It's what suffering is. Yeah.
It wouldn't have been unpleasant.
No.
If it was.
If you were not bound with them.
Well, if you were in control of it.
Or if you were in control of them, sure.
There would be no.
Sure. That's that sutta where it said, monks, would you be upset if people come and start collecting these branches and twigs and burning them and stuff? No, of course, we're not emotionally bound with them. We don't care about them. It says, well, so should you practice towards your own body, towards your own feelings, towards your aggregates. regard them same as these random things in the world, these heaps. But in order to do that, you have to undo all those kind of bonds, so to speak, and assumptions and things you hold dear to you that you take for granted. So stop restrain, stop acting out and maintaining that assumed ownership through your actions, and then feel the weight of it and sustain the context. And that's it. The mind will have to turn away from it, because you're providing the perception of anicca in things that the mind is bound with. So it forces the mind to turn away. Oh, risk, and goes away. That's how you turn your mind from assumptions and ownership. You can't just decide it, but if you clarify, sustain, and cultivate that context day in, day out, the mind will have to turn away, because it becomes unsuitable basis for ownership.
It's
the
automatic.
suitable basis, the suitable basis for ownership was turning a blind eye,
Ignorance.
ignoring it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all it took.
Or there's assumptions where, like, how do you know that form has your best interests at heart? Why do you assume that?
Yeah, that's that alien.
Because that is the most the Mother Earth. It's all about
you just
evolution.
assume that it's friendly,
that
that it's for me.
Because I can lift my arm, I can do. I'm in control of my form. Yeah,
it's a gift from Mother Earth.
Is
it?
Yeah.
Does she even know? Does she even know that you exist?
Yeah. No, it's just a selective sort of.
It's like that assumption where you assume that the God is looking after you, the Mother Earth is looking after you. It's all for you, with interest in.
It's all fundamentally good.
But why do you jump to that conclusion? Because you don't know. Because on some level you know that it is other. That you've got no access to that thing. You've got no control of it. So you can feel the weight already. I think most people would feel the weight of it, of being not in control, unless it's all going to work out again.
Yeah. So the weight of non-control is felt, and then it's too unpleasant to endure it, sustain the context in regard to it. So it's easier to just then slip back into a view. Oh, but this is all friendly and has my best interest in heart, and everything will work out. We're all heading to heaven because fundamentally we're all good and so on. But it's no, that's just a coping mechanism, because maybe it's good. See, the fact is, the emphasis on maybe, which means you can never know. So is it worth the risk? And then when it say it's good, it worked out well. Oh, but how do you know that has worked? That will work out well next? Because fundamentally, things you are heading to, no matter how good everything else is sickness, aging, and death. So, is that good? Is that going to be felt lightly, pleasantly? And by the way, it doesn't mean just sickness, aging, and death. Okay, fine, I'll deal with it. Well, when you're sick and dying, it means everything that is dear to you in the world, on account of your senses, your children, your family, your reputation, your name, your wealth, everything else that you acquired. Oh, that's now being taken away. So, if you think you can handle death, well, just check beforehand, even while you're alive and healthy, can you handle losing everything? Right here and now, just in mundane sense. Not from a death point of view, just if somebody were to come and take everything from you, would you be unmoved by any of that?
By the simile of the saw, if they come and chop off your legs.
Sure, but you don't even have to go that far. Just take away your car, take away your house, take away your family, take away stuff you're familiar with. Would your mind be unmoved? If you think, oh no, well then you can only imagine what death will do. How much it will move you. Because those are the things that will be taken away. And it's going to feel exactly like that. Thus, contemplate, sustain the context, practice sense restraint, so you withdraw yourself. You withdraw the mental dependence on those things while you still can. And then when they are taken away, one way or the other, well, there will be no basis to undermine you, because you removed yourself from it. The simile of the tree. You're on top of a tree eating fruit, and unless you come down when that tree is being cut, you will suffer a lot more if you're high up than if you're kind of halfway down or completely off the tree.
In the sensual domain.
Yeah.
If you're, not seeing the counterpart to the sensual domain, which is the direction of where attention is coming from, rather than what you're
it's the
attending
direction of sense restraint and withdrawal.
Seeing
And becoming familiar with that.
and the principle of simultaneity is also important here, is in terms of while
well,
there
it's
is the sense of self,
yoniso manasikara.
so instead of looking at turning, I don't know, the sense of self into an object, it's seeing what is dear to me and then allowing that to endure, in the sense that
that's the only correct way you can approve the sense of self. You can contemplate not self and not self, but if it's attended directly as an object, it's not going to work. But if you attend to things that yourself is emotionally bound with and contemplate that impermanence without ignoring the context of your bond, that's now undoing your sense of self.